Thank you and good evening. History. Well, where do I start? Should I start from the world's oldest living continual culture? Should I start with my history, my people's history? Should be everyone's history. Should be everyone's history. Prior to colonisation, our songlines, our stories, these were ours. And they were our responsibility to keep them alive. You all live here now. It should be everyone's responsibility to keep these alive and look after them. I'm here tonight to perform a welcome to country. There's two things very quickly with a welcome to country. A welcome to country is not a welcome to Australia. Within Australia, we have many Aboriginal lands, many Aboriginal nations, and we each refer to our lands as country. So it's always a welcome to the lands you're gathered on. A welcome to country is not a ceremony that we've invented to cater for white people. Even though it pays a lot more now than it did traditionally. It's a ceremony we've been doing for 250,000 years plus BC, because that's how long we've been here for. And the BC stands for before Cook. Prior to colonisation, you could get yourself into a lot of trouble for walking onto someone else's lands without being welcomed on the lands. And if you understood about our history, tradition and culture, you would understand the ripple effect of a welcome to country and being welcomed onto someone's country. Each clan has a very deep connection to their lands and waters. We each know what food is available in our backyard. We know where our sacred waters are that you can and cannot drink from, and we all have our sacred sites. So when I'm welcomed onto my neighbour's lands, these are some of the things I need to know. What food can I eat? Where are your sacred waters I can and cannot visit? And where are your sites that I can and cannot visit as well? This is part of the welcome to country. With a welcome to country, there is an expectation. And that expectation is you walk respectfully on the lands that you're being welcomed to. This is no different than welcoming strangers into your house. You expect them to respect your property and everything that's in your house. We expect you to walk respectfully on country. Normally I share a very brief history of the lands because it's a package deal. It's a package deal, but tonight I'm going to gift you the songline that runs through these lands. Botanical Gardens is our ground zero. Conservatory of Music's built directly on top of sacred initiation site. White infrastructure was placed directly on top of our infrastructure. Because that sacred bora ground where the Conservatory of Music is, that's exactly what we were doing. Playing songs, singing, dancing, music. Oh, let's put a Conservatory of Music on top. Hyde Park and these lands here, all ceremonial grounds. All ceremonial grounds. Hyde Park was where all the clans would get together and sort their differences out between each other. Have their little wars. Oh, let's build a war memorial. Most of the motorways we drive on today, they are our traditional walking tracks. Our traditional walking tracks. I don't know if some of you, when you drive around some of the roads, you think, why'd they build the road facing this way when the sun's right in your eyeball? Because we know that's the way we know which way to go when we're walking. So that's the reason for that. But the songline I'm going to give to you tonight is about Sydney Harbour, and it's a songline of the grass tree people, Gadigal. Gadi means grass tree, Gal means people. And like the no grass trees you'll find on these lands, there's no traditional owners left. None left. The songline is of Burra. Burra is the long-finned eel. Burra created Sydney Harbour. Sydney Harbour wasn't always Sydney Harbour. It was a flooded estuary. A flooded estuary. Those heads didn't always exist. They were closed. It was a flooded estuary. Burra, when Burra moved around on the land and water, he created all the rivers and waterways that run off Sydney Harbour. When Burra finished, he stopped at a place called Parramatta, place of many eels. This is what it means, Parramatta. Goat Island in Sydney Harbour is called Meemel. Meemel is actually the head of the eel. But every year, Burra goes on a journey from Parramatta all the way down the rivers and waterways into Sydney Harbour. From Sydney Harbour, they go all the way to Vanuatu. They come all the way back. Every clan that lives along the journey of Burra is connected through that songline, and that songline links us to our relations in other nations like Vanuatu. We're connected through that songline. This should give you hopefully a bit of insight into how deep our connection to land and waters and all living things, on land and in waters goes. We've known about this songline for thousands of years. Prior to colonisation, these stories were ours. Our responsibility. So it should be everyone's responsibility to keep these songlines alive. Once we start losing the songline, we lose the animal. Once we lose that animal, that's the chain reaction. Very important, our songlines. The Gadigal are one of 29 clans that make up the Eora Nation. This word Eora came from a young girl by the name of Paddy Garang. Paddy Garang was the first to translate her dialect into English. She was asked down at Botanical Gardens, what do you call this place? She pointed and said, from the ocean to the Hawkesbury, to the Nepean, to the Georges River, Eora Nation. In between those three mighty and beautiful rivers, there were 29 clans that made up the Eora Nation. And the name of the clan we're gathered on here this evening is Gadigal. So on behalf of those Gadigal ancestors, we believe their spirits are still in the lands and the waters. On behalf of Metropolitan Aboriginal Land Council, as we are the cultural authority on these lands, caretakers and guardians of lands and waters, it gives me great honour to welcome you here tonight. Welcome to the lands of the grass tree people. I'm going to give my apologies now. I'd love to start love history. It's the only subject I ever passed in school. Hated science. I'll never forget my Year 10 science exam. I got 2%. I got 1% for writing my name on the top of each page. And the other percent I got was, I answered one question and said, what part of the body does food first enter? I said, mouth. I got that right. It's my school certificate, 2%. Well, I love to give my apologies. I'd love to stay, but I have to go and pay a white man by the name of Wilson for parking on my land. So thank you for having me and welcome.
Thank you so much, Uncle Brendan, Karen. What a beautiful welcome to country tonight. And the reminder that it's an important responsibility for all of us to keep the stories and songlines alive and that we walk respectfully on the land. And I think I share with you, Uncle Brendan, I don't think I did very well at science either, but happily did better at English and a few other things. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. Welcome everybody to the State Library of New South Wales. I'm so delighted to see all of you here tonight, and also welcome to all those people online right across Australia who are joining us. It's a really special night tonight. Every year we celebrate the New South Wales Premier's History Awards, but this is the first in this wonderful auditorium. I think for some of you it's your first visit, and how beautiful does it look tonight? Yeah, big clap, I think. It's become a really special place, this room, for the discussion of ideas, the discussion of history, books and all sorts of things. And we welcome you back regularly to this special place. Every year, this night is an opportunity, I think, to take stock and celebrate the value of history writing and interpretation and history making in multiple formats in New South Wales. I welcome all of you, so many of you in the room who've contributed to the field this year. The library, I think it's fair to say, takes enormous pride in the role of administering and hosting these awards. Much of the work, in fact, all of the work we do here at the library centres on history. Above us is the Mitchell Reading Room, which 7 days of the week has people studying, most of them studying the past and making sense of the past in the context of the present. Below us is our stacks, which holds the library's vast collections, documenting the stories of New South Wales and well beyond. Tonight we're delighted to be joined by the Minister for the Arts, the Honourable John Graham. Our Library Council, our incredibly hard-working Library Council. So many are here tonight, and particularly the President, the Honourable George Souris. Members of our Foundation Board and key arts and history leaders in New South Wales, including Elizabeth Mildwater, the Secretary of our department, Lisa Havilah, Mary Darwell and Caroline McInnes. We're also joined by Dr Stephen Gapps, President of the History Council. I thank them for their ongoing support of history and support of these awards. The Premier's History Awards, of course, honour distinguished achievement in the interpretation of history through the written word and also films, documentaries, TV shows, websites, apps and podcasts. We had 189 entries submitted to the awards this year. I commend in particular the 11 judges for their consideration of the entries. Without you, these awards would not be possible. Many years ago, when I worked in another cultural institution, I was a Premier's History Awards judge, and I can tell you honestly, I did it for 3 years, and those boxes would arrive on our veranda, and that would be my weekend. It's a big job, and it's a wonderful job, and I thank the judges. Thank you for their careful consideration and dedication throughout the process. I'm sure none of the decisions were easily reached, and we appreciate your commitment to these important awards. I give special thanks, of course, to the senior judge, Professor David Lowe, for his leadership this year. He told me what a fantastic honour it was, so thank you, David. This week, of course, we also celebrate History Week, which this year has a theme of marking time, which, of course, invites us to reflect on the nature of commemoration. Do make sure you visit the History Council's website. There are so many events right across the state to enjoy. And please make time to revisit the library We have brilliant exhibitions on all year round, our collections, our resources that contribute to this year's themes, but also our incredible staff, our librarians, our curators, and our team that are on site here all day, every day, who are leaders in the field of history. I'd now like to hand over to our brilliant president, the Honourable George Souris of the Library Council. He doesn't like me to honour this, but this is his last year helping to present the New South Wales Premier's History Awards. He's completing 9 years of service for the library, but I know that he'll be back regularly in the years to come. Welcome.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank Uncle Brendan Kerrin, even though he's gone already, but his welcome, his fulsome welcome, is very much appreciated. I, for one, feel welcome at tonight's ceremony. Welcome also to our Minister, John Graham. I will introduce him again in a moment, but in the meantime, I just want to thank you, Caroline. Thank you for the great leadership you have given to this very fine institution. You are approaching your first year, and already your achievements are enough for many more years. You have enhanced every aspect of the work of the New South Wales State Library, and I just simply couldn't be happier to have you as our State Librarian. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Premier's History Awards. History is central to the work of the State Library, and we're pleased so many of you have joined us tonight to celebrate the work of our historians. We are a place of research, of uncovering the stories of our past and the memories and puzzle pieces left behind. It's a distinct honour to be with you tonight to recognise this important work. The Premier of New South Wales, the Honourable Chris Minns, MP, unfortunately cannot be with us tonight, but he has asked if we could share this video on his behalf.
G'day, New South Wales Premier Chris Minns here. A massive congratulations to all the winners and shortlisted entrants in the 2024 New South Wales Premier's History Awards. All states need their storytellers, and tonight's a chance to celebrate the very best. As readers, we all look to the past to make sense of our current lives and maybe get a sense of what's coming around the corner. And as professional historians, you give us a window into that history. The nominees tonight have looked through that window with exceptional clarity and skill to teach us something about ourselves. Congratulations again to all the nominees. You should be very proud of your work, and I hope it's read as widely as possible.
Thank you, Premier, and Minister, please pass on our thanks to the Premier. I am now very, very pleased to introduce our Minister, the Minister for the Arts, the Honourable John Graham. He's had a torrid day today, although I don't know that it was all that torrid. I believe he went quite okay. Budget estimates in the Parliament, which is the annual grilling of ministers and senior public servants. And so I know exactly how you feel, but tonight will be a nice, relaxed night, I can assure you. So, Minister, I know you are a huge supporter of libraries, and I am delighted that you are with us tonight to present the Premier's History Awards, and I invite you to address us this evening. Thank you.
Thanks so much, George. And firstly, I also want to recognise your service to the state and to the library on behalf of the government. I absolutely agree with those comments. As George has indicated, though, I won't be taking questions tonight. But I also want to endorse those comments about Caroline and the role she's played in the early months and time of her time as State Librarian. It's a great honour to be here tonight to recognise our talented historians in the New South Wales Premier's History Awards in this edition. Part of the beauty of tonight is we're both celebrating and making history. If you're commended, shortlisted or winning a prize tonight, your hard work and passion for history means you've actually written yourself into history. So for that, congratulations tonight. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the tens of thousands of years of human history on this land, the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. For too long, that history was not properly recognised. Thankfully, we're starting to turn that around tonight, and there are works celebrated in the New South Wales Premier's History Awards that are a really important part of that journey. I'd also like to acknowledge Professor David Lowe, the senior judge, but all of the judges. I think Carolyn's description of that hard work is incredibly true. And Dr. Stephen Gapps, the President of the History Council of New South Wales, welcome as well. Our historians deserve to be celebrated. They're a vital link to the past, and understanding the past has always been important. It helps us grapple with the issues of the day, and sometimes knowing our history helps us escape the doom of repeating past mistakes. And if nothing else, when history does inevitably rhyme, at least we can hear it. Tonight, I'd like to explain why I believe our historians, why the practice of researching and interpreting the past will become even more important in the very near future. History's always had a dynamic relationship with technology. From stone tablets, songs, stories, carvings, rock drawings, through to the book, the screen and the internet, the medium for recording and sharing history has had a big impact on how much and how far knowledge is shared amongst or across cultures. Right now, of course, in the internet age, we have more access to information than at any time in human history. That's mostly been a good thing because it's democratised history. But the quality of that information is increasingly a concern. As we've witnessed in recent elections and during the pandemic, a sea of misinformation, sometimes disinformation, is becoming a serious problem. It's eroding truth and trust in public life. As guardians of truth and trust, that makes history and historians even more important. Now, if you're worried about misinformation and the erosion of trust in the internet age, the age of generative AI could create fake news on steroids. With all the previous technological revolutions, humans have remained the author of their own history. That could be about to change for the first time in our history. Now, I apologise if that sounds a little bit apocalyptic. I am optimistic that we'll navigate AI, use it to our advantage, as humans generally have with new technology. But I want to put this view to you, that will depend on our continued support for historians as guardians of truth and trust and context in that world. Support for the practice of history, the methods of sourcing our information, contextualising facts, framing perspectives, interpreting the past for present-day audiences, all of the elements that make our history truthful and trustworthy will be more important than ever as we move into the next chapter of the relationship between history and technology. That is just one of the reasons, there are many more, that is just one of the reasons why our historians and the New South Wales Premier's History Awards tonight are so important to the New South Wales Government. So congratulations to all concerned. Congratulations particularly to all the contenders and the winners tonight. Enjoy the awards. Have a great night.
Thank you so much, Minister, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'd now like to get on with the awards, which I know that you're all very excited to hear about the nominees and the winners. So I welcome Senior Judge Professor David Lowe, who comes to us. He's a professor at Deakin University, an Australian biographer and a historian of modern international affairs. He's incredibly widely published. His CV goes on forever, but co-founder in particular of the Australian Policy and History Network, amongst many, many other accolades. So welcome, David. We're delighted that you're here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caroline, for that very warm and generous welcome. Caroline mentioned in her earlier remarks that I'd passed on that it was an honour, and it really was an honour to be involved in the awards for this year. It was also a great pleasure when those boxes, which Caroline referred to, started arriving. It seemed that time stood still for me for a while. There was this intense enrichment and satisfying experience of working your way through the latest publications in history. It doesn't happen too often in your life that this intensity of such an experience arrives, and I'm sure my fellow judges enjoyed it just as much as I did. On that note, I'd like to extend my thanks to all of the judges involved, the 11 of us. It was, we discussed it amongst ourselves, it was very much a labour of love. We emphasised both just how much labour there was and just how much love there was in roughly even quantities. What it enabled us to do, though, is to reassure ourselves that the discipline is thriving, the discipline of history is thriving. It's thriving through traditional things such as the hard work, the research toil, but it's also thriving because it's very alive to innovation and diversity, as will be clear from the titles and what we're about to hear this evening. I'd also like to extend my thanks to Daniela Baudry and other members of the awards team whose professionalism and skill shepherded us through a very long process extremely successfully. And I'd now like to invite Minister Graham back to the stage, please, as we commence the awards. As we present the category shortlists, I'd appreciate if you could please hold your applause until the end of each category. The first award we will present this evening is the Anzac Memorial Trustees Military History Prize, which is valued at $10,000. Thank you to the Board of Trustees for your establishment and sponsorship of this award. This is the second year this award has been offered. The shortlisted works in this category are Kriegies, the Australian Airmen of Stalag Luft 3 by Kristen Alexander, self-published by Kristen Alexander. The Chipoli Six, Unsung Heroes of the Great War by Lucas Jordan, published by New South Publishing. And Flawed Hero, Truth, Lies and Crimes by Chris Masters, by Alan and Unwin. And the winner is Kriegies, the Australian Airmen of Stalag Luft 3 by Kristen Alexander. Kristen is unfortunately not able to be here this evening, so please welcome Dr. Peter Hobbins to accept the award on her behalf.
Minister, Library Council, State Librarian, trustees of the Anzac Memorial, judges and readers. Kristen asked me to send you sincere apologies that she couldn't join us here tonight, but it's a privilege to accept this award in her stead. Kristen says, "I'm deeply honoured to be awarded the Anzac Memorial Trustees Military History Prize. While this award will sit on my shelf, it belongs to those who supported me in writing Kriegies. My cheer squad of friends and colleagues, my husband, NSW Canberra, as the research was conducted under its PhD program. It also belongs to the former prisoners of war and their families who shared memories and records, who helped me gain insight into the individual and collective captivity experience. It was a privilege to tell their story. It means much to me, Kristen, that a self-published work can be recognised in this way. As a Canberra literary blogger recently wrote, self-publishing is where many writers start. In my case, after many multiple rejections, it's where I ended up, because I don't want to give up. But self-publishing isn't an easy option. Getting Kriegies to reviewers and into shops is a mammoth task. I'll admit I failed in that regard. So my great hope is that this award and the recognition it affords will bring this book to many more readers. Kriegies tells how Australian POWs successfully negotiated captivity. But captivity's residue bled into post-war lives. Pain, trauma, moral injury, blighted relationships, domestic violence, suicide.
This award is life-changing. Those who've read Kriegies, like me, know I plan to write about captivity's tragic legacy, but to be honest, I couldn't afford to self-publish again. Thanks to the New South Wales Premier's History Awards, the Anzac Memorial trustees and the judges, I can. Thank you, says Kristen, and I say, well deserved, mate.
The next award we will present this evening is for the Digital History Prize. This prize, worth $15,000, is for an Australian historian's interpretation of an historical subject using non-print media. The judges noted two highly commended works in this category. The Defenders by Matthew Bate, produced by Closer Productions, and Liverpool Street, Darlinghurst by Nicole Karma, Nicholas Clark and Wing Pang, produced by the authors. The shortlisted works in this category are The Giants by Rachel Anthony and Lawrence Billier, produced by General Strike and Matchbox Pictures. The Dark Emu Story by Alan Clark, Jacob Hickey, Darren Dale and Belinda Moravicic, produced by Blackfella Films and the ABC. And The Search for the Palace Letters by Daryl Delora, Jenny Hocking and Sue Maslin by Film Art Media. And the winner is The Dark Emu Story by Alan Clark, Jacob Hickey, Darren Dale and Belinda Moravicic. We're joined by Darren, Belinda, as well as Bruce Pascoe to accept this award.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us here at the library. Thank you, Caroline, for inviting us here and hosting these wonderful awards. Look, it is a great honour to receive this award. We were very fortunate to win this award last year for the Australian Wars, and I think it says something about our country, our renewed interest in hearing about First Nations people's stories. But when I think about the Dark Emu story, I think about resilience, and I think about the Aboriginal communities across this country that have shown great resilience to keep their practices, their traditions and their stories intact. I think about the resilience of the historians and the academics that have continued to help us tell our stories and the generosity that they've shown in sharing those stories and then making them available for some Aboriginal people to rediscover their stories as well. I think that what Bruce did, Bruce Pascoe, who's standing here with us, is he showed incredible resilience and perseverance at a great cost to him, actually, in writing this book. And then the subsequent persecution, the people that went after him and questioned fundamentally who he was as a person. But Bruce has done as other Aboriginal people have done, kept extending that invitation to the country to hear our stories and to share in our stories. And I want to thank Bruce for sticking with us to tell this story. It got very difficult for Bruce to be involved with this, and we had a lot of people who didn't want us to continue to make this film, but we persevered because Aboriginal people around the country, their stories deserve to be shared. But more than anything, Bruce, I want to thank you for your incredible perseverance and allowing us to make Dark Emu, and thank you for sharing this gift with Australians. So, Bruce Pascoe.
Aboriginal publisher, Aboriginal filmmaker, Aboriginal author. Really important for Australia, and there will be arguments against it and derision, but that is the future. And just a brief comment on AI. The Minister talked about rock carvings in relation to Aboriginal people, and it came up on the screen as rock carvings. Now, I live in the country and I know how calves are created. And it does rhyme with rock, but they're not rock. So that's the future for us. It's in its infancy and may not get far beyond it. I'd also like to acknowledge the Bostock family who are here tonight, because it's always important that the The people who did the hard work for us in the early days are acknowledged, and those people have done the hard work for everybody. When it wasn't popular, when it wasn't pleasant, and when there were no bloody prizes. Thank you.
Now for the Young People's History Prize. This award is worth $15,000, and the shortlisted books this year for young readers are Our Country, Where History Happened by Mark Greenwood and illustrated by Frane Lesac, Walter Books, Australia. Two Sparrowhawks in a Lonely Sky by Rebecca Lim, published by Allen and Unwin, and Country Town by Isolde Martin, Robin Ridgway, and illustrated by Louise Hogan, Ford Street Publishing. And the winner is Two Sparrowhawks in a Lonely Sky by Rebecca Lim, Allen and Unwin.
My apologies, I'm going to read this. I'm not a very accomplished public speaker. Good evening, Minister, esteemed judges, the State Librarian and staff of the State Library of New South Wales, Create New South Wales and the History Council of New South Wales, my fellow authors and honoured guests. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of the land and waters on which we're meeting, and the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the first peoples of country on which Two Sparrowhawks was written. I pay my respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all First Nations people here today. I'm extraordinarily grateful and amazed to be here. Thank you for this immense honour. I'm a first-generation migrant and I never saw people like me in books for kids growing up. For most of the 19th and 20th centuries, Australia's published books for children didn't feature and weren't written by non-British migrants, let alone accurately reflect our rich First Nations cultures. Pardon me. In 2022, family members handed me a treasure trove of mid-20th century documents from the National Archives with familiar names in them, including Alec Downer, Harold Holt and Arthur Caldwell. A deportation order signed by Harold Holt, which would have changed my family's history if it had been enforced, brought home the largely secret history of Asian Australians. So besides hopefully being a stirring tale of adventure, Two Sparrowhawks also functions as a corrective, a thought experiment and an elegy for a lost era. I would have loved a story like this when I was growing up because people like me were often portrayed as the villain in stories about the gold rush, the Eureka Stockade and Federation, and we were completely absent from narratives around Gallipoli and nation building, even though Asian Australians have lived here for centuries and fought and died for our country just like other Australians did. Pardon me. Two Sparrowhawks is my small attempt to decolonialise our published children's book canon. So for a kid who learnt to speak English, watching truly dumbfounding shows like Skippy the Bush Kangaroo and Countdown, this is really massive. So thank you again for this incredible honour and thank you to my publisher, Allen and Unwin.
The New South Wales Community and Regional History Prize is valued at $15,000 and is for a book that makes a significant contribution to the understanding of any aspect of the history of New South Wales, including community, regional, urban, institutional or local histories. The shortlisted books this year are Reaching Through Time, Finding My Family's Stories by Shauna Bostock, published by Allen and Unwin. Bennelong and Philip, A History Unravelled by Kate Fulliger, published by Scribner, an imprint of Simon & Schuster, Australia. And The Road to Bateman's Bay, Speculating on the South Coast During the 1840s Depression by Alistair Gregg, published by ANU Press. And the winner is Reaching Through Time, Finding My Family's Stories by Shauna Bostock.
Thank you very much, everyone. I would like to thank the Minister, thank the judges and thank the State Library for this function tonight. It's such an honour to be here. I'd also like to thank Uncle Bruce Pascoe for acknowledging my family. It was really quite thrilling to hear him say that lovely acknowledgement. And my book is basically about I've traced my 4 Aboriginal grandparents back to the settlement of northern New South Wales and started back from there and researched my family history from past to present. And I situated that in the context of Australian history because I needed to know what their lived experience was. And what I found was really powerful and enriching, and it's a captivating story. There's some wonderful humour and some, along with the oppression and sadness and hardship, there are also shining moments of humanity and kindness to Aboriginal people. But I do, like Uncle Bruce said, I do take my hat off to my ancestors. They forged the pathway for Aboriginal people. They went through some very harrowing experiences and they survived and came through and pushed for us, future generations, to succeed and live in equality with other Aboriginal people. So I'm really, really honoured. This award is dedicated to my ancestors who were such incredible survivors, and I'd like to thank you for this.
Now to the General History Prize. This prize is for books relating to international history. The shortlisted works for this $15,000 prize are A Bloody Difficult Subject, Ruth Ross, Te Tiriti o Waitangi and the Making of History by Bain Attwood, published by Auckland University Press. Virtue Capitalists, The Rise and Fall of the Professional Class in the Anglophone World, 1870 to 2008 by Hannah Forsyth, Cambridge University Press. And Systemic Silencing, Activism, Memory and Sexual Violence in Indonesia by Catherine E. McGregor, published by University of Wisconsin Press. And the winner is Systemic Silencing, Activism, Memory and Sexual Violence in Indonesia, Catherine McGregor.
Wow, thank you very much. I would also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Gadigal people and their elders past, present, emerging, and also I'd like to acknowledge the Minister and the judges and the State Library as well. Thank you so much. And thank you in particular for having this prize, a General History Prize, which importantly acknowledges the contributions Australians make to writing international history and I hope contributing also to understanding the wider world. And I'm really honoured to be awarded this prize, and I also want to congratulate my current fellow nominees as well for their excellent shortlisted works by Bain Attwood and Hannah Forsyth. And I also thank the judges for their careful evaluation of this work, for recognising, I hope, the contribution of this quite powerful story about Indonesian women and how they also persevered as survivors of the comfort women system of World War II. And I began with the question in the classroom to write this book about why there was so little attention to Indonesian survivors of this system, whereas we knew far more about Korean women, Filipino women. And so I began with this story and comparing across different countries across Asia how Indonesian women fared in this process of trying to reckon with this history and seek justice. And the project would not have been possible without the Australian Research Council, which enabled me to do a future fellowship. And it took basically 8 years to write this book, so I'm really so grateful for that time. And I thank many people for their support in helping me write the book. But my main hopes really for this work, Systemic Silencing, are that it contributes to what we know about and indeed how we think about the so-called comfort women and how we place their experiences in the context of longer histories of sexual exploitation and inequality in what was then the colony of the Netherlands East Indies in Indonesia. And I hope I've also done the two survivor activists at the centre of my book, Mardiem and Tamina, justice in the comments that I offer on their lives and their pathways through activism. A key aim in writing this book was also to open up histories of activism and to really critically reflect on those histories. And I hope that the Indonesian translation of this work, which is already underway, will also inspire new histories of Indonesian women, particularly non-elites, who continue to be marginalised in written histories. And an aspiration also for this book is to make a contribution overall to challenging systemic silencing of survivors of sexual violence, not only in wars, but of course also in daily life. And I hope the book will also increase our understanding of the complex and ongoing legacies of World War II across and beyond the Asian region. Thank you so much.
And now for the final award of the night, the Australian History Prize. This prize is also valued at $15,000. The judges noted two works as highly commended. They are Science and Power in the 19th Century Tasman World, Popular Phrenology in Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand, by Alexandra Rodzinski, published by Cambridge University Press, and Cruel Care, A History of Children at Our Borders, by Jordana Silverstein, published by Monash University Publishing. The shortlisted books are Donald Horne, A Life in the Lucky Country, by Ryan Kropp, published by La Trobe University Press in conjunction with Black Ink. Bennelong and Philip, A History Unravelled, by Kate Fulliger, Scribner, an imprint of Simon & Schuster Australia, and Courting, An Intimate History of Love and the Law, by Alicia Simmons, La Trobe University Press in conjunction with Black Ink. And the winner is Courting, An Intimate History of Love and the Law, by Alicia Simmons. Alicia's unfortunately not able to be here this evening, so her mother, Helen Simmons, is accepting the award on her behalf, and we now have a video message from Alicia to share.
It's such an honour to accept this prize, and I'd like to thank the judges and everyone involved in the Premier's History Award for their generosity. I wish that I could have been there tonight because the State Library is where my book was born 8 years ago with the Merriweather Fellowship, and every chapter draws upon the papery remains of past lives found in the archives there. To this end, I'd like to thank all the librarians who every day help to make history. It was in the Mitchell wing of the State Library that I had so many of those eureka moments in my book, where after sifting through almost 1,000 breach of promise cases over the course of 2 centuries, it occurred to me that I'd stumbled upon a history of working class love, and that intimacy for a seamstress, a train driver, or a domestic servant looked very different to the stories of romance that are told by bourgeois letter writers, diarists and novelists. It's there that I marvelled at how heartbreak had a history, how the physical effects of people's pain took different forms across time. And I came to the realisation when reading about women who claimed compensation for the dinners that they'd cooked their partners or the housework that they'd performed, that in so many ways our forebears might have been wiser people than us. It also dawned on me while in the library that a history of Australia told from the remains of people's broken hearts offered a wonderful corrective to our anemic national mythologising of stoic, independent blokes and robust women. My book instead tells stories of nervous, sentimental men and fierce and fragile women, of vulnerability and resistance. Courting did, as I said, take over 8 years to write. And as such, it's a plug for slow history and a testament to the patience of my faculty. I'm really lucky to be working at the UTS Law School, a place where my colleagues are my closest friends and most discerning readers, and I'd like to thank them. I'm also very lucky to be in a fully unionised faculty that does not rush research. We're told to take our time and to make a worthwhile contribution, and I hope that that's what I've done. I'm also in a faculty that values teaching. And the voice in my book that asks the reader what something means is really that of a teacher. And if I've explained complex ideas clearly, it's because teaching has taught me to do this. It's also possibly something I've inherited from my parents, both of whom are teachers and who are there tonight in my place. And I'd like to thank them for their unwavering support and love. I incurred so many intellectual debts when writing this book and was constantly stunned by the generosity of academics and historians. Among the many people who I thank in my acknowledgements I'd like to particularly single out Anna Clark, James Jung, Frank Bongiorno, and Marilyn Lake, all of whom read the book in its entirety and offered feedback. I'm also really grateful to my editor, Denise O'Day, who reached into my vast morass of words and somehow retrieved a book. I was constantly humbled by her patience, her sagacity, and her impeccable grammar. I'd like to thank my publisher, Black Ink La Trobe, for letting me keep my footnotes and for writing and allowing me to write an academic book that also has popular appeal. I'm just so excited for the future direction of Australian history as we dare to tell stories that are rigorous yet imaginative, a bit novelistic, and aimed at promoting social justice through writing beyond the academy to reach the widest possible audience. Thank you.
Thank you. What a beautiful way to end. Yeah, it was very touching. I think I got goosebumps hearing that it began 8 years ago in this very library, and the role of librarians, academics, historians, and all of you that play a role in producing a book of that quality. It now concludes the awards ceremony. Congratulations again to all the winners, but all of those shortlisted, all the highly commended writers, and all those of you who entered books in this year's prize. Please stay to enjoy the party just outside in the Glasshouse. The library shop is selling copies of all the winning and shortlisted books. There is no better way to support history writing and history making than purchasing those books. So please go ahead and support all the fellow historians in the room. I really want to thank again Senior Judge Professor David Lowe for all the work you did, and all the fellow judges who, of course, are listed in the booklet. Please join me in thanking them for all their work. And I'm now going to take a minute to thank the team at the library. It is the most outstanding team here. I've been in the role 10 months and the quality of staff here is exemplary. I particularly want to thank the awards team. The awards team is actually one person. We say things like the team. It's one person who's supported by a few others. Daniela Baldry, you've done an extraordinary job. Lydia Tasker, too, who leads the public programs team. Callum McLean and Claudine Wheeling. You know, the work that they do day in, day out, replying to emails, sending out the books, doing so many behind-the-scenes work, working with the judges. So thank you for your outstanding work and everybody who works in this fine institution. I now invite all the winners back to the stage for a photograph. Thank you everyone for coming. Have a beautiful weekend and enjoy the hospitality here tonight. Thank you very much.